Hey everybody, welcome to our Facebook Live. I'm excited to be with each and every one of you here tonight. We're talking about the 19 signs of a close call friendship. Because what I've discovered is that when affairs occur, whether in a married or non-marital relationship, oftentimes it's a result of knowing somebody. And it's a result of knowing somebody for quite some time and possibly in an inappropriate way. And so I want to delve into this topic of friends because I would say that the number one question that singles struggle with is, can men and women really be friends? But the number one topic or question that married couples struggle with is, can men and women really be friends? And it seems as though regardless of your relational state of affairs, whether you're single alone, single in dating, in a committed courtship, engaged, or married, people struggle with this particular answer because we all have different opinions, in different interpretations. We come from different relational backgrounds where certain things were appropriate and others were not. So I think it's important that we kind of delve into the topic. You know, as I was watching conversations on Facebook within certain groups that I'm in, this whole issue of the office spouse came up, right? So I'm married, but I work with someone and I've been working with them for quite some time, and they're my office wife, or a woman has an office husband. And so the whole notion of for your partner to get you or to expect you to end that relationship, it speaks to their insecurity. And I have a problem with that because when I talk to most people, whether I'm particularly coaching or counseling them or just through conversation, a lot of the affairs have happened as a result of knowing someone, a quote unquote friend. Usually when you're dealing with an affair, it's not common that it is a one-night stand with a stranger. Yes, it occurs, but the overwhelming majority of them happen because I'm working with somebody, I'm serving on a ministry with someone, someone that goes to my gym that I see regularly. So there's a relationship that develops over the course of time. So we want to really unfold this thing. And so just to give you a foundational perspective, when you think about friends, whether you're dealing with male, female, female, every single friendship, every single relationship on the planet Earth, and I said this last week, is based upon some form of attraction. Now, it may not be a physical attraction, it may not be an emotional or a sexual attraction at all. Oftentimes, it's platonic, the way most of us understand that word. And what that means is there's something about this person that I like, but there's nothing inappropriate because I'm respecting the boundaries of my particular relationship. But we have to admit that there's some form of attraction. Based upon a commonality that we share. So as an example, he likes football, I like football. We come together based upon that commonality. It works for us. So we can talk about football all day long. We can talk about positions and games and scores, and we really resonate when it comes to that particular topic. Now, what if my spouse was not into sports? And I found a member of the opposite sex, someone that I work with, that is a sports enthusiast. It would be easy to strike up a conversation. It would be easy to have a level of rapport and conversation with that particular person. And so that's where the lines kind of get blurred, because if I'm working with someone and it should be just appropriate, business appropriate, but when we get together on Monday, we're talking about the weekend, we're talking about the kids, we're talking about the game, and we're getting excited, and there's an emotional connection. All of a sudden, over the course of time, we become friendlier and friendlier and friendlier. And then we can begin to justify certain behaviors that would be typically inappropriate if we were to engage in them. And so when you look up the word platonic, because many people say, well, the relationship is just platonic. When you look up that word, by definition, it means to have an affectionate, an intimate relationship with a member of the opposite sex, void of sexuality. Now, as I've said, it is very difficult to be intimate and affectionate with a member of the opposite sex, and for the desire for sex to not occur, or the actual act of sex to not occur. So we have to be careful about what we consider to be platonic relationships, because by definition it's problematic. And so you have to do a good job of really honoring your spouse and having what I call rules of engagement that you and your partner abide by to protect the sanctity of that relationship. And so what I wanted to do was to discuss some of the signs, because many of us are guilty, if you will, of some of these signs, but we're guilty of it in ignorance, because we never knew that they were signs. We never knew that these were danger zones. And so I want to go through them one by one. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time tonight. We're probably going to have a 25 minute call, and then I'm going to open it up to some Q&A. But here are some of the signs that I want you to be aware of. So if you are in a relationship and you have a opposite sex friend, or your partner has an opposite sex friend, as we go through this list, I want you to write them down to see how many of these particular signs identify with your particular behavior. Number one, the first dangerous behavior of a close call friendship is sharing topics of conversation with your special friend. So what that means is that, you know what, when it comes to certain topics, I can't really communicate with my partner because that's not his interest, that's not her interest. But Hafiza at work or James at the gym, when we come together, in essence, I'm waiting to share this particular conversation with him because I know that I can connect and vibe with him. And so what that does is, it starts off natural, but over the course of time, the more we share, and I'm sharing intimate things about my life and he's sharing intimate things about his life or her life, we're forming a bond that takes place naturally over the course of time. And now we have a connection with one another that we may not even have with our own spouse, okay? The second dangerous sign is sharing spousal difficulties with your friend. So that means you have issues and situations in your relationship, and the first person you go to is your opposite sex friend, because your thing is, well, you know what? He can understand what I'm going through, or he can give me the male perspective, or she can give me the female perspective. And oftentimes that can be a danger zone, because when I'm sharing what's going on in my home with somebody else, what that's doing, it's allowing that other person into my world. And so a lot of times, men and women are friends because there's no mutual attraction. So let's say I'm friends with a female. Now, this female secretly desires me, thinks I'm attractive, would love to be in a relationship with me, but because I'm integral and because I'm doing the right thing, I don't pursue that. And so by default, we become friends. But if the opportunity were to arise and I was interested in pursuing her, it would happen instantly, automatically. And so what happens is, when you're sharing your difficulties with someone who is an opposite sex member, a quote unquote friend, if they have some hidden desire for you, then that information can wind up being used to their advantage and to your relational disadvantage. So you have to be very careful who you share your relationship difficulties with. Number three, allowing that friend to share their relationship difficulties with you. Now, I'm going to tell you why that's problematic. I had a friend a long time ago, platonic relationship, okay? She actually got married. I was one of two people who were witnesses at her wedding. A couple of years later, when she got into a crisis in her relationship, before I was a coach or a counselor, she came to me for advice. She began to pour into me. And with my friendly listening ear, I began to receive all that she was saying. And I would empathize with her. And I would encourage her. And I would embrace her to let her know that it was going to be okay. And the level of sympathy, the level of empathy, the level of compassion that she received from me, she did not receive from her husband. So all of a sudden, she starts developing an unnatural attraction for me because she was in a low emotional state. And so what happens is, oftentimes, a person can develop feelings for that person who becomes a listening ear to them. And so that's why it's a danger zone. And so I had to shut that relationship down and prevent danger from taking place by forming inappropriate attractions. The next thing, and we're going to really go through this quickly, number 4, anticipating seeing that person more than your spouse. Now, think about it. You spend about 8 to 10 hours a day at work. Statistically, the average couple in America and the UK spends 5 minutes a day talking. Could you imagine 5 minutes a day of quality time with your partner in comparison to 8 to 10 hours with other people on your job. So you have deeper, more intimate relationships with people outside your home than those within your own home. Now, interestingly enough, that 5 minutes of quote unquote quality time is typically broken up at the two most prime times of the day. As I'm racing off to work, and as I'm coming home from an exhausting day of work. And so we're talking about bills, we're talking about babies, we're talking about, finances and responsibilities and all of the duties and responsibilities of marriage. So there's no true intimacy, there's no true emotional connection. So I feel like I have a partnership, but I don't have companionship. I have more of a companionship with my friend than I do my own spouse. And so when I'm anticipating seeing somebody else because of the natural connection that we have more so than my spouse, that is a danger sign that your relationship may be in trouble. Number 5, comparing your friend to your spouse. This is a big no-no. At the end of the day, there are going to be people in your life who have certain things that your spouse does not have. For instance, I'll give you a perfect example. In general, I'm a very serious person. That's my disposition, right? So I like to laugh, but I'm not the guy that's going to have you cracking up and in stitches and on the floor because I said something humorous. So if my wife has a natural desire for someone to make her laugh and I don't provide that, she in essence is getting a need met in somebody else that I do not have the ability to meet. Now that can cause a problem if there are vulnerabilities in the relationship. And so if she got into the mode, because we're not in a good place, of comparing me to some other guy, well, he doesn't make me laugh the way John makes me laugh. And so all of a sudden, an attraction and an affection develops for John because John could do something that I can't. That is a sign that you are in the danger zone. Next, number 6, providing treats for your friend. I've seen this time and time again. So we have a relationship, we're cool, and I know that you like Snickers bars with the walnuts inside, dark chocolate. And I went to the store and I saw it and I just thought about you. And here, I just wanted to let you know that I was thinking about you and I appreciate you. Take this piece of dark chocolate with the walnuts. Now, to you, it was just a nice gesture. But you have to understand that the giving of gifts is a love language. When you read the 5 love languages, it talks about the giving of gifts. And really, a lot of times people interpret people who have a desire to receive gifts as gold diggers, as materialistic. But that's not it at all. It's not so much about the gift or what the gift costs or what the name brand is, but it's what the gift represents. It represents that you were thinking about me. It represents that you took the time to go out of your way and to do something nice for me. And when you do that, even though it's a silly $2 Snickers bar, is what it represents. You're meeting a deeply embedded need in that person that they may not get from their partner. So even if it's some simple treat, be very careful because that can be a sign that you are in the danger zone. Let's go on. Number 7, being concerned for your friend's welfare. I can't tell you, working with couples, how often I've dealt with this. So for instance, I'm counseling an individual who has a friend, and because their friend is sick, they're constantly calling and checking up on their friend. Is there anything I can do? Can I go to the store? Can I get you such and such? Do you need help with the kids? Do you need me to run some errands for you? So there's more care and consideration and compassion for some quote unquote friend than what you have for your spouse. That is a major, major problem when your thoughts and your heart and your mind and your emotions are tied up into someone else's welfare where you can care less and tell your partner to kick rocks. That is a sign that you are in the danger zone. All right, here we go. Number 8, fantasizing about marriage with your friend. Now, here's the reality. Upwards of 50% of all marriages end in divorce, okay? 50%. That means that the additional 50% are married. But the question is, how are they in their marriage? We know that an additional 30% of those who are married experience what we call an emotional or social divorce. So they're legally married, but they're emotionally detached. And, we've gone from what we would call soulmates to role mates to roommates. We're just living together. We're two ships that are passing by in the middle of the night. There's no connection, there's no communication, there's no sexuality, there's no intimacy, there's no nothing. So I'm thinking about and daydreaming about what life would be without you. Because guess what? I can do better all by myself. And so not only can I do better by myself in my mind, now I start thinking about my friend. And I'm thinking about, wow, he understands me. He talks to me. He's so compassionate. He's so friendly. What would life be like with him? And so here I have a scenario of the 80%, but the 20% is missing. The friend represents the 20%. So I'll give up the 80 for the 20. Now, many people have made that mistake. And what's so interesting when you're dealing with affair partners, now this is across the board. This is not in every case, but we have found that the affair partner typically cannot hold a candle to the actual spouse. They're not necessarily as successful. They're not as attractive. They're by comparison, the average person would say, you did this for that. Like, what were you thinking? The reality is, it does not matter. It doesn't matter how much the affair partner has. It doesn't matter how successful he or she is. It doesn't matter what he or she looks like. There is a need that is being met, a perceived need that's being met in that affair partner that possibly may not be being met in that spouse, and that's what causes us to venture off. So you have to be careful in terms of daydreaming and thinking what life would be without your partner, particularly when you're thinking about what life would be like with another person. All right, let's go on. Number 10, now this is deep. I want to slow this down because this is where I would say 80% of the couples that I work with struggle with. Not allowing your spouse full access to all modes of communication. So that means I have a password on my phone. I have a password on my email. I have passwords on all my social media accounts. You are completely locked out. So in essence, I am allowed to live a separate life, possibly a separate identity that you know nothing about. I'm having private conversations. I'm engaged in relationships that are quote unquote platonic but are inappropriate. I can't tell you how many individuals have been sexting with their friend, have been flirting with their friend, have been using social media and joining chats in forums, establishing inappropriate relationships with quote unquote friends, unbeknownst to their spouse. And so when you have the attitude, you know what, this is my life, and I'm going to keep my life private. You didn't sign up for that when you got married. See, because when you got married, the two of you became one. So there should be no password protected anything when it comes to dealing with your partner. Like, what in the world is so appropriate that I've got to hide it from you? And so there's got to be rules of engagement when dealing with forms of communication. One of the things that I talk to couples about is social media etiquette. Because many of us just don't know how to behave. We act a darn fool when it comes to social media. In fact, when you look at a lot of divorce cases, ever since 2008, divorce has skyrocketed in this country, and a lot of it has been associated with Facebook in particular and other forms of social media. And so because men and women, husbands and wives, can't come to terms on what is appropriate and what is not, we get into all types of trouble. So when I'm coaching couples, I literally have them take out pads and pens, and they're writing down every code, every email password and username for all forms of communication, and they exchange it. And it's not that you're giving it up so that your partner can now spy on you. No, it's not about that. But what I have found is that if people are hesitant to give it up, it's questionable. It begs the question, well, what is it that you're keeping from me, that you're struggling with sharing? What really is it that I will find if I dig a little deeper? How far back do I have to go? And we have found that partners have been busted on numerous occasions because they have had inappropriate communication with members of the opposite sex, which speaks to another issue. This whole issue of monogamy, right? Being single, for instance, I'm a man, I'm married, I've been married for 14 years. I don't have a desire to have a whole bunch of opposite sex friendships. Now, if I do have an opposite sex friend, best believe that that woman has to become my wife's friend. If that woman cannot be friendly with my wife, she can no longer be friendly with me because it's inappropriate. Imagine I'm on my couch watching television, kicking it with my wife, and all of a sudden my phone rings and I pick up and it's Hafiza and I'm cackling and laughing and talking, or maybe a text comes in. We're in a conversation and I'm interrupted because I'm texting and I'm giggling and laughing. She's asking me, well, who are you talking? Oh, nobody, it's nothing. And I'm engaging in conversations and I'm just having a good old time. That's inappropriate. So my thing is, when you enter into a committed relationship, specifically marriage, that becomes your primary relationship and everything else becomes secondary. So as it relates to friends, does it mean that you have to cut off all of your friends? Not necessarily, but the nature of those friendships has got to change. So the things that you did before you said I do have got to be completely different now that you're married, because listen, you can't do what you used to do and get away with it and think it's okay. Now, if the friend that you have has a spouse, right? I'm sure that he or she would think it would be inappropriate as well if they knew the nature of your conversations, the length of your conversations, the frequency of your conversations. And so if there's nothing inappropriate, then all of you should be friends. You should couple up and become friends together. Now, if that can't be done, then we have a problem on our hands and it's time to reevaluate the so-called friendship. I hope this is making sense, because this is something that many couples struggle with and can't come to terms with. So as it relates to being open and honest about all forms of communication, give up your passwords or remove them completely so that your partner has full access. Now, some of you struggle with that because you have privacy issues. You deal with secrecy. Maybe you've had bad experiences in your past. All I can say, don't judge your present partner by a past situation, and now you're holding your present partner hostage to situations you've never overcome or gotten over with. Listen, you got to forgive what was done to you in your past and start over anew. I've seen this so many times where I was burnt in my past, and so now I have this new internal vow of what I'm going to do or not going to do, and it's unfair. And so this is what I call relational menage a trois, where you're bringing your past partners or your past situations into your present relationships, and they follow you everywhere you go. So you've got to learn how to cut those things off and start anew. So in that sense, what worked for the relationship in the past, you may have to have a completely different dynamic for this relationship. Which brings me to another point. A lot of times when we're in relationships, we're always comparing our present partner to our past partner or partners, saying, well, I never had to go through this and I can't believe this. And well, the dynamics of those relationships were different. The blending of the personalities are different. The family culture, the interpretations, the perceptions, the upbringings are different. And so you have to become adaptable to a new situation that works for you as a couple. And if you can't get to the point where you're doing that because you're so rigid and you want things the way that you want things and it doesn't work out for the relationship, you have a major problem on your hands. Let's go to the next one. All right, I think we are at number 12. Number 11. Spending money on your friend without your spouse's knowledge. Now, this is a little different than purchasing a treat that you give to a friend. I've seen countless times where a friend ran into a situation and they're like, you know what? Oh my God, I have an emergency. I just need $500. Can you let me borrow $500? Now, you have rules with your spouse about, how much you give to people. So there's a limit that you give to people, but because your friend's in need and because you have care and compassion for your friend, you will, behind your partner's back, dig into your bank account and give this opposite sex friend money to resolve a situation, as long as they promise to give it back to you by the end of the week. And so you get the money, you throw it back into the account, your spouse never knows, you're safe. But that was secrecy. That was deception. Now, if you could justify doing it the first time, what about the second? What about the third? Now, what happens when you get caught? This is an example of what we will call financial infidelity, where you're tiptoeing, tap dancing, and pussyfooting around your partner when it comes to your finances to financially support a friend, a member of the opposite sex, unbeknownst to your spouse. That is a major, major sign of a close call friendship. Now, these close call friendships imply one of two things. Either the relationship is too close, or the more you begin to identify this list, it will identify you as being in an affair relationship. Now, keep in mind, you can be in an affair relationship and never have sex. It is what we call an emotional affair. Okay? So there's a soul connection. There's a heart connection. There's a level of compassion that you share outside of your marriage. That is an emotional affair. And these are clear signs and indications that you may be in one. Let's go to the next one. Number 12, arguing with your spouse over the relationship with your friend. Now, if there is a friend that you have that's always a point of contention with you and your partner, that's a sign that that's a close call friendship. Because at the end of the day, listen, truth be told, yes, I know some people are insecure. They bring those insecurities from past relationships. They never quite healed from certain things. And so now they force their insecurities on you and kind of keep you in a box. I understand that. And that's something that we've got to work through and overcome, because there should be a level of freedom that you have within your marriage. You shouldn't be trapped. You shouldn't feel like a prisoner. You shouldn't feel like you're locked down for the rest of your life. But at the same time, there's got to be a level of respect that you have, okay? So when we're dealing with this particular issue, arguing over a spouse, if there are legitimate concerns that have been raised, if there have been countless examples of inappropriateness, okay, if you have a previous intimate relationship with this so-called friend, of which you do not share kids, so there's nothing that is binding you to this particular relationship, it may be time to reevaluate. There have been times in our marriage where we had to check certain friendships, because the more we discovered the nature of that friendship, or the more we began to discover an individual's motive and intent for being in the relationship, we realized that this was not a healthy one. So if I'm constantly on edge, if she's constantly nervous, if there's a sense of paranoia or struggle as it relates to this opposite sex friend, at the end of the day, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it, because your spouse is your primary relationship. Now, once again, let me clarify. It doesn't mean that the relationship always has to completely be terminated, but the nature of that relationship has got to change. I know couples where a partner has all of these female friends and none of them know the spouse. None of them have ever met the spouse. When they call the house, they don't acknowledge the spouse. Some of these female friends, they've had previous sexual relationships with and have held on to these friendships. These are danger signs, because there is familiarity when it comes to opposite sex friends based upon past relationships you still hold on to. So if I'm in a vulnerable state, if I'm in a moment of weakness, if I need somebody to connect with because I'm struggling with my spouse, and I could simply pick up the phone and call my friend because she understands me. She knows my past. She knows my history. We can connect. We can get together for coffee. We can get together for dinner, and it's no big deal. What will happen is the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong circumstances under the wrong situations will result in the wrong behavior. And so affairs occur. So you have to be mindful when it comes to this particular thing. All right, next. I think we are at number 13. Lying to spend more time with your friend. Hey, babe, I know it's 5 o'clock, but I'm working late. I'll be home in a couple hours. Yeah, I was thinking about going to Craig's house. You know, Craig and them, we going to a basketball game. I'll see you later tonight. So now you're using situations and circumstances and friends as alibis, right? So that you can spend quality time with your friend. So if you find yourself lying or being deceptive or misdirecting or leaving out critical information that you don't want your partner to know, deception, that is a lie. That is a sign that you're in an inappropriate relationship. Number 14, hiding interactions with your friend. So now you get a call that your husband was spotted with somebody that they work with in a car driving down 95, and you're hiding it, okay? You're coming up with reasons or justifications for why it was so. You're tiptoeing, tap dancing, and pussyfooting all around your relationship to spend time with your friend. That's a problem, okay? Next one, 15. Jealousy develops on the part of your spouse, okay? So if there's jealousy developing, once again, there are two scenarios here. Either past insecurities that you're subject to within your relationship, or sometimes the insecurity that we have was created within the relationship. So I didn't come in with these issues. In fact, I never dealt with these things before. But now that I'm dealing with them in this marriage, I now feel insecure. Now, insecurity simply means I do not feel secure in this relationship because of what is occurring. And so I don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know what next month or next year holds, because as I observe your behavior and your interactions with members of the opposite sex, I don't know where I stand in your life. I don't know where I stand in this relationship. So I am, yes, insecure. And so therefore it can lead to jealousy, because wow, I wish I had the connection that you have with her. And we see this time and time and time again. Now, let me give you this example. If you've ever been invited to a dinner party, now you knew that they were cooking and preparing food for all of the people who attended the party. Do you know that there's some people who will actually go and eat a meal before they get to the party? On their way to the party, they will actually eat food. Why? You know, there's different rationales. I don't know how the food is going to taste. If it's nasty, at least I don't come on an empty stomach and I'm struggling. There are many justifications for this. But think about it like this. If I know that I'm married in a committed, loving, mutually beneficial relationship where there should be emotional connection, sexual fulfillment, meeting each other's emotional needs, there should, throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of the week, develop a hunger, a thirst, a drive for my spouse. Okay? But if that hunger, thirst, and drive is being fulfilled because there's a hole, there's a leak, right? And the emotions that should be building up for my partner are now being given and shared and met with a quote-unquote friend, it dilutes the desire that I have for my spouse. So I no longer need my spouse to meet my need because my friend is meeting my need. And if that's happening, that is a sign that you are in the danger zone and you need to terminate that particular relationship. All right. Number 16, developing rituals with your opposite sex friend. What does that mean? Well, you know, we work together and, you know, we start work at 9 o'clock and our routine is, you know, before we go into the office, we stop at the trucks, you know, this truck stop, because we get breakfast together and we spend about 10, 15 minutes drinking coffee, talking about how the night was and how the weekend was. And that's our ritual. Nobody knows about that. We don't have to call. We don't have to text. We already know this place, this time, this is our situation. Boom, there it is. That's a problem. That is a problem, because longevity, sustainability, commitments, all of those things are developed around rituals. Rituals is something that you form with a spouse to ensure the longevity of that particular relationship. So when we're talking about learning how to build emotional intimacy with your spouse, because a lot of times when you've been married for a long period of time, you're no longer in love. You love your partner, but you're no longer in love. So the question is, how do you get that love back? The reality is the in love feeling lasts for approximately 2 years on average, and then it begins to wither away. And then you have to be intentional to do what was easy to do when you first got married. So creating rituals, right, are daily or weekly or monthly routines that you are consistent with that keeps that emotional connection strong. So if you're developing that with an opposite sex friend, there is a problem. I hope you guys are learning something, and I hope I'm not going too long. I know we've reached half hour, but I'm almost there. If you like what you're hearing, just press the like sign or the love sign. And also, listen, share this live stream. Share it on your page, share it in your groups. We want to grow this audience so that we can meet the needs of those who are struggling with these particular issues. We're almost there. All right, number 17, exposing a shiver, or there's a feeling that you get when it comes to your opposite sex friend. Isn't that amazing? Every time he passes by my desk and I just smell his cologne, oh my God, it gives me a shiver. Every time she leans over and brushes her shoulder up against mine, it gives me a shiver or a quake. So now I'm anticipating the scent. I'm anticipating the closeness. I'm anticipating the interaction because of what it does to me. And wow, when was the last time that my spouse made me feel the way my friend makes me feel? Maybe this wasn't God's will. Maybe I'm not supposed to be married to my partner because I no longer can feel naturally the way I feel naturally with this other person. You are being deceived by what we call newness. Anything that's new is sexy. Anything that is new feels good. But what's new quickly becomes old after a period of time. So the key is bringing newness back into your relationship. So we have found that the language of attraction becomes the language of seduction, meaning what you naturally had with your partner when you first came together, the shiver, when you touched each other, when you had a level of closeness to each other, that dissipates and fades, right? So now you got to work extra hard to get that feeling back, but you naturally get it with someone else. That is the language of seduction because it's pulling you away from the one that you're supposed to be attracted to. Hope that makes sense. Number 18, we got 2 more, we're almost done. Allowing sexual content in your conversations with your friend. I can't tell you of a more obvious sign than this. If you are talking about sex, now this happens in a number of different ways. So number one, either A, how can we say this? Hey, you want to hear a joke? So now I'm telling you a dirty joke. And the dirty joke is somewhat suggestive, is somewhat sexual. Now that could be a test to see how you react. Because if you brush it off and you laugh and it's no big deal, no big deal. It's not like I'm talking about what's going on in my bedroom. It's not like you're talking about what's going on in your bedroom. But now what happens over the course of time, I know at least I can tell a dirty joke and get away with it. So the next time we're talking about, I don't know, we're talking about Scandal or How to Get Away with Murder. And I'm like, yo, did you see Scandal? Did you see Empire? Yo, that sex scene was crazy. Now you're engaging in conversation about the sex scene. But inside, the person is calculating. Okay, so she liked that. All right, I wonder if that's what she likes in bed, right? So what happens is it begins to develop and build up. So now you're talking about scenarios and situations, not directly you, not directly her, but just general say, what do you think about this? And yeah, I heard about this situation. What are your thoughts on that? And so it's bringing you closer and closer and closer to having inappropriate sexual conversations. So now you're discovering what each of you like in your bedroom, what you're no longer getting from your spouse in your bedroom. And now you're texting. You got long streams of text, right? And now you're showing body parts and penises and vaginas and hips and thighs and all of these different things on your phone and in your email, and it's being exchanged on social media, and it's causing a problem because you did not shut that down from the very beginning. So it becomes a danger zone if you're doing this. Now, the very last thing, number 19, and we're done, corporate dating, okay? That is taking advantage of business trips or group meetings to spend time with your affair partner. So here's the deal. We've seen this countless times. So listen, we serve on the same ministry, so I'm going to see her. You know, we serve on the same board, or, you know, we work in the same department of work, so I'm naturally going to see him. And so I use these social events, I use my involvement in the ministry or on my job as an opportunity to spend more quality time. So now I'm so caught up in my work, not because I'm passionate about the work, but I'm passionate about the quality time that I get with the one that I work with. And so if you're in that place, it is a sign that you're in a bad place within your relationship. These are the 19 signs of close call friendships. So you've got to now evaluate yourself. How many of these signs line up with you that you were unaware of? Now, what's interesting about this list, a lot of times affairs, when they occur, they don't necessarily occur because someone is intentionally going out. They're intentionally looking to get into trouble. They're intentionally wanting to hurt their partner or to destroy their marriage or to destroy their family. A lot of times in ignorance, the consistency of ignorant behavior gets us caught up in situations that we begin to rationalize in our minds. We begin to justify in our minds. And now we're in a situation that we knew See, you know when you're getting too close. You know what you're doing, but you're testing the situation. How far can I go without going all the way? So if this is the line, right, you try to get as close to the line as possible because you've convinced yourself of how strong you are. And then you really realize how weak you are because, boom, now you're caught up in a situation. Now, when you do it the first time, you're in pain, you're in trauma, you're disgusted with yourself, you're mad, you're angry, you're repentant for a moment. But because of familiarity, you find yourself in that situation again. And all of a sudden, you begin to justify the second time, and then the third time, and then the fourth time, you're numb. And then the fifth time, it's just easy. And then the sixth time, that's just what you do. It becomes your habit. And so that's why we really have to put the brakes on what we would call inappropriate opposite sex friendships because it represents the danger zone. So the key is this. For some couples, relationships with members of the opposite sex is all good. So I'm not here to try to change the dynamic of your marriage if it's working. But the question is it working for your marriage? If it's working for the husband and not for the wife, if it's working for the wife and not for the husband, it's not working for the marriage. Quick story, and then we're going to go. So there's a couple that I'm familiar with. This woman works with another gentleman. This is her so-called office husband, office spouse. They never engage in physical sex, but over the course of time, because they have to spend time together working on projects, she develops an affection towards him. She begins to have a heart connection with him. The husband's aware of what's going on because, think about it. A man knows when another man is trying to pursue his woman, like a woman knows when another woman is trying to pursue her man. We just know these things. She asked the woman to stop. She said no. She justified the relationship. It never became sexual, but it became emotional. And so the struggle of how do I disconnect because I've stepped in this so deep, I don't know how to unravel and get myself out. And so while we're dealing with that relationship, we're also dealing with the mistrust. We're dealing with the unforgiveness. We're dealing with the resentment that now the husband has for the wife because he gave her several warnings of what would happen if this relationship pursued. She didn't listen. Now they're in a big old mess. Now this works for both genders. And what I'm saying to you is it's time to have a real heart-to-heart conversation so that we can evaluate what's appropriate and what is not. So I hope that some of this was helpful. Now, I got a question that someone sent me about an affair that I want to kind of speak to and then want to close this thing out. Now, I can't necessarily see all of your comments, but if you do have questions for me, please feel free to inbox me the questions and I will ensure that I'll deal with these particular questions in our upcoming Facebook Live sessions on Monday night. I may not be able to get to them all tonight, but this is a very good question. The question is, what do you do to re-engage and to reconnect with in-laws after an affair has occurred? Now, this is a common issue that many people struggle with because if I have been in an affair situation and I'm the hurt partner, I'm going to naturally reach out to people who I believe love me, who I believe support me, who I believe will be on my side in my moment of need, in my moment of grieving. And so what happens is I go and I tell, it could just be a close friend, it could be a mother, a father, a sister, a brother, a cousin. It could be everybody. But I think that it's important that when you are in crisis, particularly the first phase of an affair, which we call the discovery process, where you've just discovered the affair, that you remain as tight-lipped as possible. Because when you bring too many people into your world and into your home, if you and your partner restore the marriage, right? Okay, you've recovered. The people that you've shared these details with still have aught and unforgiveness, and there's a struggle, there's turmoil that still exists in all of these relationships. So then it becomes awkward for that affair partner to now enter back into the family because now he or she knows that everybody knows, that everybody feels a certain type of way. And so now that family starts punishing that affair partner because of what happened. Or maybe it's vice versa. But the point is, you've got to remain tight-lipped and only share the details of the affair with people who you can trust, with people who represent your answer and your solution. I think the biggest problem is we share our problems with people who share our problems. So there's no hope. There's no healing. All there is a justification to be mad and pissed and angry and to leave. And so that's why you have to go to people who represent your solution. So whether it's dealing directly with a coach or a counselor, whether it's seeking out a marriage mentor, someone who is detached from you, your side of the family or your partner's side of the family, there's got to be a safe environment that you create for you to engage in conversations and find your healing. But in the case when the information is out there, everybody knows what's going on, this is how I would say that you need to resolve this. So let's say my wife and I are in an adulterous relationship. I cheat. She tells her family. The family's pissed at me. We restore our relationship, but the family relationships are just tattered and torn, and everybody hates my guts. How do we get through this? Well, it becomes my wife's responsibility first to have a conversation with her family, letting her family know that we are working on restoring our marriage. Okay? I've shared certain things with you in my time of hurt and pain and grieving moments. And they were very painful, and I appreciate you coming to my side, but I want to save and restore my marriage, and this is what I would ask you to respect, and I would like for you to support me in my decision. So the initial conversation has to happen with the member of the family who has, or the spouse and the member of their family. Now, once that conversation has happened, what it does is it creates a safer environment for that spouse to enter in. Now, the spouse and the one who shared it with the family then have to come together. And so if it's a situation where listen, the dynamics are different. There are no absolutes to anything. But sometimes couples have gone to the family together or gone to the mother, the father, or whoever was in close relationship. And together they have gone and had conversations. Because the reality is this. If you have an affair on a person, you're also having an affair on that family. So there is residue that follows. Other people are hurt, not as much, but in a different type of way. They're hurting for their partner or for their family member. They're grieving in a different way. And so sometimes there needs to be a recovery process that the couple is involved in as they go back to the family. But all I need to say is this. One partner needs to lead. Whoever is the blood relative of the family who is upset needs to lead in that endeavor, and then collectively the couple then needs to go to that family and work through the issues and have a healthy conversation to resolve certain issues, because words can be shared, behaviors can be demonstrated that are really painful, and what it does over the course of time, it really destroys relationships. And so now holidays become awkward, birthdays become awkward, weddings and funeral. I'm not going to your family's house because they don't like me and I don't like the way they say it. And I remember 8 years ago when such and such and such happened. All of these things occur. So you have to be mindful of these things to really mend these relationships, because I'm not just married to you. I'm married to everyone that you are connected to, including your family. So hopefully that helps. And then the last thing is this. A question came in about emotional triggers. So an affair took place 10 years ago, but I'm still having emotional triggers today. When am I going to get over it? When is it just going to heal? The reality is it's different for every person. So this whole notion that time heals all wounds is a fabrication. It is erroneous. It is a lie. Time does not heal all wounds. What you do with that time will ultimately heal the wound. So if you're going through a process of recovery, self-growth, personal development, you're with a coach or a counselor, spiritual transformation, emotional healing, you're really putting a full court press on your transformation, then obviously that person experiences healing much sooner than the person who doesn't do that. And so a large part of the emotional wounds that we carry is our inability to forgive. And we're not going to talk about that in depth tonight. We'll talk about that. But many of us have failed to truly forgive our spouses for what they've done. And so we're harboring this pain. And so the wounds that were created 10 years ago are just as raw today as when they were first inflicted, because we haven't gone through the proper forgiveness process. But in addition to what we must do as the hurt partner, The unfaithful partner has a tremendous responsibility of rebuilding the relationship. So in essence, they can't continue to do what they've done that got us in this situation. They've got to rebuild it. They've got to prove consistency of behavior, of love, of trust, of transparency, of respect, of honor, right? Because I'm naturally going to have insecurities. I'm naturally going to have doubts. My mind is going to start playing tricks on me. My imagination is going to start running wild. And so I've got to have the support of my partner who's compassionate and empathizes with what I'm going through. And as I'm working on myself, my partner is assisting me in that journey so that I can properly heal. And so when couples come together, things work out. Now, I'm going to say this last part and then I'm going to go. That's my promise. 90% of the time, couples do not divorce because of an affair. They don't. Couples divorce because of how they show up after the affair has taken place. So we have found when people are willing to put in the work, when they are willing to go to counseling, when they're willing to have accountability partners, when they're willing to have a marriage mentor, when they're willing to have open and honest conversations, when they're willing to put their defenses down and have vulnerability in their communication, we know that couples heal and their relationships are stronger after the affair than before the affair. But for those individuals who are tight-lipped, for those individuals who show no compassion, who just get frustrated every single time a situation or a conversation comes up, I thought we dealt with that 10 years ago. Why are you still bringing this up? Because you have left holes in the story. They don't have a sense of closure because you were never a part of the process. And so if you still are hanging on to these inappropriate relationships, if you're still coming home in all hours of the night, if you're still breaking rules that you've established as a couple, if you're doing things that dishonor the marriage, then those are the things that ultimately lead to a divorce because it shows an unwillingness for you to change. If you want to be in a healthy, successful, mutually beneficial relationship, change and transformation is mandatory. It is mandatory. You got to change the way you do, change the way you think, change the way you feel, change the dynamics of how you function so that you can have a better relationship. So for all of those who are experiencing infidelity in their relationship, I would highly encourage you to go to my website, couplesacademy.org. That's couplesacademy.org. Click on the button that says free discovery session. I would love to have a complimentary 30-minute session with you to figure out a game plan of what we can do together to help restore your marriages. There are some of you who are on this Facebook Live right now that are current clients, previous clients, and you can speak to the power of the transformation you experience getting help from me. And let me just say this, there are many people out there that do many great things, but I would highly encourage you, if you seek help, go to someone who knows what they're doing. You can't go to a general practitioner. If you are in pain in your knee, you go to your family doctor to help you. If he or she is responsible, he or she will refer you to a specialist, someone who specializes in knee pain. Why? Because they're a general practitioner. So there are a lot of general practitioners who mean well, who have great general information, but may not be able to speak to the specifics and the nuances of an affair. You need someone who knows what they're doing. I'm an infidelity recovery specialist. I'm here every Monday night at 9 p.m. to give you a taste of what you would experience by us working together. So go to the website, sign up for your free 30-minute discovery call. And let me just say this, I want to thank you all for pre-ordering the book. I've made the announcement that I have the possibility of getting picked up by a major book publisher. If I have 500 pre-orders, I'm now at about 198 books. I've got a week and a half to go. It seems like a big effort. It is, but I believe with your support and with your help, we can actually do this. So listen, Christmas is coming up. There's so many people who could use this book. It's The Audacity of Marriage, 10 Principles of Lifelong Partnership. It will be a blessing to your marriage. It will be a blessing to others. I have taken all of my coaching and counseling tips and techniques and put it into this book to hand it over to a couple so that they can dig in it, work through it, and get the healing that they need. It is a step in the right direction. Love you guys. Thank you for being on this Facebook live stream. Please inbox me with any questions you have, and I will do my best to honor each and every one of you. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.